Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We are holding a Mishnah Berurah Chel Gimel, and Mir Hashem today we will be learning Daf Mem Tes Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos, and today we begin on the very top line of Mem Tes Amid Beis with Siman Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Tes Zayin. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanesunim Batzaru Bashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayom Ubein Bayabasha Hamakayim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitziam Mitzar L'Lervacha Me'afela L'Ura La'ira Mishiba L'Geula Hashta Bagala V'Zman Kariv and Emar Amen. Our learning should be a schus Refuah Shalema for Tzvi Ben Leah Miriam. Before I even begin this year, I'm saying this year in the Sukkah, and there's something that came to my mind that I wanted to mention. It's very interesting. In Hilchos Sukkah, we have a whole compilation of Halacha LaMoshe Misinais. One of the broad categories, I guess you would say, of Halacha LaMoshe Misinais that's brought down in the Gemara is the Halacha of Mechitzos. The halacha of what constitutes a partition. There are a lot of different halacha l'moshe misinais in the halacha of mechitzos. And because we're speaking about mechitzos, many of them are negeah to Hilchos Sukkah. So, for instance, we have the halachas of good asik and good achis, the ability to extend a wall going upwards or the ability to extend a wall going down. We have the halacha of limud, that when we have an open space and there's less than 3 tfachim of open space between two closed areas, we view them as being closed off. So, for example, if you have posts and in between each post you have less than gimel tfachim, we look at the open area between the posts as being halachically closed. We have the halacha of doif and akuma that says if you have a wall that goes up and then at the top, alongside that wall, you have pasal eschach. The classic case in the Mishnah Masechtas Sukkah is you have a room that has a ceiling. The ceiling is the roof of this building. You bust open the roof and you put schach over the opening in the roof. But you didn't bust open the entire roof. You busted open a square in the middle of the room. If on all 4 sides you have less than dalet amas from the beginning of the opening to the side wall, we say doif and akuma. Doif and akuma says that part of the ceiling that's still intact, we don't look at it as being pasal eschach. We look at it as being a continuation of the wall, so that we look at it as if the walls go up and then they turn and then they meet the schach. And therefore, you have a kosher sukkah because you have walls and you have schach in the middle. All of these are halacha l'moshe misinais. What's very interesting about these halacha l'moshe misinais is that for the most part, all of these halacha l'moshe misinais, they create kulas when it comes to the halacha of sukkah. They're not creating chumras for the most part. They're creating kulas. And what they're doing in many cases is they're telling you, look at something, and even though you don't really see a mechitza here. So, for example, limud. Limud, you have posts and you have opening in the middle. You have a tremendous amount of open space over here. Yet, we're going to say that it's a mechitza. Good achis and good asik. You don't really have a wall. You don't really have a wall at all sometimes. And yet we say that since there's something on top, we could drop it down. Since there's something on the bottom, we could extend it up. Good achis, good asik. A lot of these halachas, they're creating a kula where we don't see a mechitza, yet there really is a mechitza. Now, it could be that one of the reasons for this, not a reason for it, but a lesson that you could learn from it, is remember what the whole lesson of sukkah is. The whole lesson of sukkah is, tzei midarascha diras kva, go out of your house, go out of your diras kva, go out of your nice, strong house with the locks on your doors and everything else. And go out into a diras arai. Go out into a sukkah, which, compared to a house for sure, is a flimsy structure and everything else. So what are we supposed to learn from that? One of the things we're supposed to learn from it is that our house is not what gives us shmira. Our house is not what protects us. What protects us is tzila de menusa. What protects us is being in the tzeil, in the protection of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's what protects us. That's why we have halacha l'moshe misinais that come along and tell us even things where you barely see a mechitza here at all. You're dealing with limud, good achis, good asik. You barely see a mechitza here at all. But if halachically it's a mechitza, then it's a mechitza. If the halacha l'moshe misinai makes it a mechitza, it's a mechitza. Because after all, for protection from the Rebbeinu Shalom, You don't really need a mechitza at all. You don't need anything. You just need the rutzin of the Berurah Olam. That's all you need. So we have all of these kulas in the Diras Arai of Sukkah where you barely even need a Diras Arai. You barely even need a mechitza. But you need something that's halachically a mechitza. Once halachically it's a mechitza, once the Torah Kedosha recognizes it as a mechitza, that's all we need. The Rebbeinu Shalom is protecting us. The Rebbeinu Shalom is watching over us. That's all that we need. One of the things that we have to remember, and I keep saying this constantly, is that while our minds are focused on Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasunim Batzara Ubashivya, when you look at the news and when you hear the news, Chas v'Chalila, don't fall into the trap of Koichi v'Yitzim Yadi. Don't listen to the news and say, "Wow, look at the wonders of the IDF. Look at the amazing chaps that they come up with, the Mossad and the Shin Bet, and how they pulled off this operation and how they pulled off that operation." Without the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's all garnished vert. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom that gives the Hatzlach. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom that gives the Shmira. And you should know, Rabbi say, your tefillas, your davening, when you go ahead and you daven and you say v'lam al shinam al ti sikva v'chalaminim kregi aveda and shover oivim umachni azedim, when you daven at the end of Shemona Esrei and you say v'chalakamim v'achoshvim alay l'ra, all of those that get up and think to do evil to us, that the Rebbeinu Shalom should scatter away their plans and he should ruin their evil schemes and their thoughts. That's more powerful than any iron domes, than any guns, than any tanks, than anything else. Your tefillas, your limud HaTorah is far more powerful than any of that is. Okay, nachzar l'inyonenu. So we are really picking up today on the top line of Mem Tes Amud Beis with Siman Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Tes Zayin. However, I realized that there was something that I wanted to mention yesterday that I think I neglected to mention, and therefore I'm just going to take a moment to mention that right now. Just checking that everything is right here on my recorder. Yes, everything is good. Okay, so we learned a halacha yesterday in Sif Yud Dalet, when the Mechaber told us that the mitzvah min hamuvchar, the chosen way, the best way to be mekayim the mitzvah of Kiddush, is sheyitamu kulam, that everybody, all of the mesubin, all of the people that are being yotze with this Kiddush, should take at least a te'ima. They should take at least a sip of the yayin shel Kiddush, of the Kiddush wine. Why is that? The Mishnah Berurah does not tell us why. So if you take a look in the Darkei Moshe, the words of the Ramah on the Torah, not over here, but in Hilchas Birkas Hamazon, in Siman Kuf Pei Beis, I think it's Darkei Moshe, Ois Cotton Aleph, the Darkei Moshe, the Ramah brings down a Ran. The Ran says that it's Yakra de Kaisa. It's the glory of the Kais Shel Bracha that everybody should go ahead and be tayyim from it. And we could understand that very easily. The Kais Shel Bracha is such a choshev a kais. How do you show the chashivas of the Kais Shel Bracha? Not by the Kais Shel Bracha sitting there on the table and nobody paying attention to it. By everybody wanting to take a sip from the Kais Shel Bracha, that shows the yukra de kasa. That shows the preciousness and the great value of the Kais Shel Bracha. Okay. Now we turn to Mem Tes Amud Beis, end of the top line, Sif Tes Zayin. Says the Mechaber, Lo yitamu ha-mesubin, those that are being yotze with the Kiddush, the mesubin, those that are gathered for the Kiddush, they should not taste from the kais of Kiddush, kaidem sheyitaim ha-mekadesh, before the mekadesh himself tastes from the yayin shel Kiddush. So, in other words, the mekadesh just made Kiddush. So he made Kiddush, he put the kais down. Now, he is going to drink a mali lugmav, he's going to drink the share of Kiddush from the kais. Now, he put the kais down, and he pauses for a moment. So the fellow sitting next to him wants to take the kais, and he wants to pour a little bit into his cup, and he wants to drink from the kais shel yayin. He should not drink from the kais shel yayin before the mekadesh himself drinks from the kais shel yayin. Now, there's a caveat to that. Says the Mechaber, why is that? When is that? Im heim zekukim lekaisai. That's only true when the mesubin require yayin from the kais shel Kiddush. What does that mean? Explains the Mechaber. Sheshoifech mimenu la kaisais shebiyadam reikanim. Either you can have one case where the Mekadesh, he made Kiddush, nobody else has Yayin. Now, they all want to taste from the kais shel Kiddush, that's the mitzvah min hamuvchar we learned, but they don't have any yayin to drink. So the Mekadesh has to pour from his kais into their empty cup. So if he takes his kais and he's pouring it to your empty cup, but he didn't drink yet, you don't drink before he drinks. You wait for him to drink until you drink. But there's another case where this could be. Oy, pigumim. Or the Mechaber says, maybe somebody around the table does have yayin in front of him. He has a kais shal yayin. I have yayin right over here because it's chalamayid, and I'm drinking yayin in the sukkah l'chvayid Yom Tov. So maybe somebody has in front of him a kais shal yayin. He just listened to Kiddush. He just listened to Bar Priagofen. Really, why does he need to get yayin from the Mekadesh? He heard of Bar Priagofen. He could take a sip of yayin right now. But there's a problem, says the Mechaber. What if the yayin in your kais is a kais pogum? This happens to be a kais pogum because I drank from it before I started this year. Since I drank from it, it's a kais pogum. We're going to learn in the very next sif in the Mechaber that if you listen to Kiddush and you have a kais pogum in front of you, even though halachically there's nothing wrong with you drinking from a kais pogum, you didn't make Kiddush. You can't make Kiddush over a kais pogum. But I'm not the one who made Kiddush. The Mekadesh made Kiddush. I was yaitzu with Kiddush. I was yaitzu with the Bar Priagofen. I want to drink yayin now. But we're going to learn in the next sif that that's improper. If you were just yaitzu Kiddush and you want to drink yayin, you shouldn't drink from a kais pogum. How do you make it ois pogum? How are you masaking it? How do you take off the status of kais pogum? Well, if the Mekadesh takes his kais and he pours a little bit of yayin from his kais into your kais, then he just added yayin to your kais pogum. By adding yayin to a kais pogum, you're masaking the kais. It's no longer a kais pogum. So over here, what the Mechaber is telling me is like this: the Mekadesh made Kiddush. He was moitzi you in the bracha of Kiddush and in the bracha of Bar Priagofen. The mitzvah min hamuvchar is that everybody should drink from the kais. Says the Mechaber, don't drink from the kais before he drinks from the kais. But this halacha, says the Mechaber, is only negeya if you need yayin from his kais. When do you need yayin from his kais? Well, first of all, you have no yayin. If you have no yayin, then yeah, you need yayin from his kais. That's one case where you need yayin from his kais. Another case is you have yayin in front of you, but it's pogum. So you need yayin from his kais so that he should pour yayin from his kais into your kais in order to be masakin it. That's another case where you need yayin from his kais. But then there's a case where you don't need yayin from his kais. You know what that is? Let's say you have a kais shalem in front of you, and it's not pogum. You have a perfectly acceptable kais in front of you that really would be perfect for Kiddush. It's a kais shalem. It's a kais that's fully intact. The wine that's in it is not pogum. You have a shear, you have a revius in your kais. So really the kais that you have in your hand is a kais that you yourself would be able to make Kiddush on. In that case, you could drink from your kais before he drinks from his kais. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because he made Kiddush. You listened to his Kiddush. He had kavanah to be moitzi you in the Bar Priagofen in the bracha of Kiddush. You had kavanah to be yoitza with the Bar Priagofen and with the bracha of Kiddush. You have a perfectly acceptable kais in front of you. You know what? Halachically, it's as if you made your own Kiddush. If halachically it's as if you made your own Kiddush, go ahead, drink from your kais. You don't need his kais at all. So again, says the Mechaber, those that are gathered around to be yoitza with the Kiddush should not drink from the kais before the Mekadesh himself drinks from the kais. Im heim zekukim lekaisai. That's true if they need wine from his kais. Two scenarios where that's true. Number one, they have empty cups in front of them, so they're waiting for him to give them wine. If you're waiting for him to give you wine, he gives you wine, but he didn't drink yet, you can't drink before he drinks. That's not pakovidik. Or, scenario number two, Oy, pigumim. Or you have a kais of yayin in front of you, but it's pogum. And since it's pogum, it's not proper that after hearing Kiddush, you should drink from a kais pogum. strictly speaking, you don't require a kais that's not pogum because you didn't make kiddush. Doesn't matter. You adjust yaitze kiddush. It's improper that now you should drink from a kais pogum. So you have to wait for him to pour wine into your cup to be misakin your yayin. So it should no longer be pogum. Since you need his wine, you can't drink before he drinks. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ice cotton pay. Now, I just realized that I skipped a good portion of Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Ayin Ches. I just realized that we ended the previous share in the middle of Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Ayin Ches. So I'm going to go back to that in a moment, but first I don't want to divert everyone's attention from what we were just learning, so let's jump to Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Pay. Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Pay says to Mishnah Berurah, Lo yitamu hamesubin, hainu af shahayu lehem kaisais b'fnei atzman l'shtia. Even though they have their own cups to drink from, they should not drink until the Mekadesh drinks. And he gave us two scenarios where you need his wine. The second one was where your kais that's in front of you is a kais pogum. Says the Mishnah Berurah Cotton Pei Aleph, Oy pegumim. He's reminding us, pogum nikra, what's called a kais pogum? That's called pogum kishetam mi mehamashkid mitchila, where somebody already drank from the wine that's in that kais. And in the very next sif cotton in the mechaber, we're going to see the kishahakaisai shel hamasubin pegumin, when the people that are gathered around to hear kiddush, the masubin, have kaises of yayin, but they're pogum because they already drank from them. Mitzvah sheyishbaich hamekadish ma'at mikaisai l'saich kaisan. It's a mitzvah, and it's proper that the mekadesh should take some of his wine, pour it into the kaisais of the misubin in order to be misakin their kaisais, so that the yayin that they drink should not be pogum. Shebazeh yisakin kaisan shelo yeh pogum v'hoyel shehem zekukin lekaisai. And since in this case you require wine from the mekadesh, tzrichin lahamtan alav sheyibta mitchila. You have to wait for him to drink first, otherwise it's not bakovedik. You need wine from him, so you're going to wait until he gives you wine, but then you're going to drink before he drinks. That is improper. This, I would venture to say, is the most common scenario that we have nowadays. The head of the household makes kiddush. Now, normally the head of the household makes kiddush and drinks from the kais right away. But let's say everybody's very concerned about germs or something, so they don't want him to drink from the kais before he gives out. Also, what a lot of people do is improper, by the way. A lot of people make kiddush on the kais, then they pour out a little wine into a second kais, and the mekadesh drinks from that kais. That's not proper, unless the mekadesh pours at least a revius into the second kais. But if he's going to pour less than a revius into the second kais, we learned earlier that when you drink the malelugmav of kiddush, you're supposed to drink it lechatchila from a kais that contains a revius. So to go ahead and make kiddush on a kais, then pour a malelugmav into a second kais and drink from that is improper. So normally, again, nowadays, I think most people, they make kiddush, they drink from the kais, and then they dole out wine. But let's say the olam wants him to dole out wine before he himself drinks from the kais. So everybody has in front of them an empty kais, right? So they need his wine. They don't have wine to drink without his wine. So now he goes around the table doling out wine. The recipients of that wine should not drink until the mekadesh himself drinks. Now, since we're on this topic, let's just go right into Sif Yud Zayin, because Sif Yud Zayin flows, really this halacha flows from the halacha of Sif Yud Zayin, not vice versa. But let's see Sif Yud Zayin before we go back to the Mishnah Berurah that we skipped. Says the Mechaber, Sif Yud Zayin, Ein tzarech lishbaich mikais hamekadesh lekaises yayin shelifnei hamesubin. Me'ikar adin, if everybody has cups of wine in front of them, then there really is no reason for the Mekadesh to have to dole out wine from the Kais Shel Kiddush. If the Mekadesh is making Kiddush on a Kais Shel Yayin, and everybody else has their own Kais of Yayin in front of them, so as soon as the Mekadesh makes Kiddush, they could feel perfectly fine to go ahead and drink from their Kais Shel Yayin. They have a Bar Priagofen, They were Yotze with the Bar Priagofen of the Mekadesh, and they had Kiddush. They were Yotze in Kiddush from the Mekadesh. So now they had Kiddush, they have a Bracha Rishona, they could go ahead and they could drink their own wine. And that's the first thing that Mechaber says here in Sif Yod Zayin. Ain't Tzarech Lishpais, Mikais HaMekadesh L'Kaises Yayin Shelifnei HaMesubin. The Mekadesh doesn't really have to dole out wine if everybody has in front of them their own Kais Shel Yayin. Ela Im Kein Hayu Pigumim. Unless the Yayin that they have is pogum. If the yayin that they have is pogum because they already drank from it, or somebody already drank from it, then the Mechaber is telling me it is improper that you just heard Kiddush and now the first yayin that you drink should be from a kais pogum, because this is Kiddush yayin that you're drinking. The Kiddush was made al hakais. This is your kais for Kiddush. When you drink from it, it should not be a kais pogum. Me'ikar adin, is it a problem? Are you not Yotze Kiddush? If your kais was a kais pogum, you are Yotze Kiddush. As long as the Mekadesh had a kais that wasn't pogum, you're okay as far as Hilchas Kiddush goes, Me'ikar adin. But it is improper that you should drink from a kais pogum. That's why the Mechaber says, Ela im ken hayu pogumim. Sha'az tzarech lishbaich l'chal kais v'kais. If everybody's kais is a kais pogum, or even if one person has a kais pogum, then the Mekadesh has to pour from his yayin, which is not pogum, into their wine. Kadesh yishtu kula mikais she'eino pogum, so that when they all drink, they should be drinking yayin that is not pogum. Says the Mishnah, cut pei beis she'az tzarech lishbaich hainu kaidem sheyishta hamavarech. Preferably, at least, this should be before the Mekadesh himself drinks. Because remember, by the Mekadesh himself drinking, he's going to be pogum his own kais. Once he drinks, it becomes pogum. That's actually a machlokes haposkim, but that's the way the Mishnah seems to be going. Ice cut pei gimel, and the reason for this is we want everybody to drink from yayin that's not pogum. Kadesh yishtu kulam avagav deshtias kalam asubin loima akva kedel el besif yodalid. Even though strictly speaking, meikar adin, there's no problem over here. They don't have to drink from a kaisha ein a pogum. The Mekadesh has to drink from a kaisha ein a pogum. Mikamaka mitzvah lechatchila sheyishtu mikaisha ein a pogum lechatchila. They should all drink from a kaisha ein a pogum. Now I'm realizing here that there's really a key piece of information that I left out. That some of you might be wondering about. I named it on as a davar pashut, but it's not a davar pashut. So let me give you that piece of information. Realize that we said in Sif Yodalid that the mitzvah min hamuvchar is that everybody should be toyim. Everybody should drink a little bit from the kais of Kiddush. Now, in the scenarios that we're discussing over here, we're saying that the Mekadesh made Kiddush, and other people have kaisais shal yayin in front of them, and they want to drink from their kaisais shal yayin. So he said, if their kais is not pogum, there's no problem. But if their kais is pogum, it's a problem. Then the Mekadesh should add a little wine to their kaises to be masak in their kaises. Realize, when they drink from the kais of yayin that's in front of them, they are being mekayim the mitzvah min hamuvchar that everybody should drink from the kais shel bracha, even though they're not all getting from the kais of the Mekadesh. Since that's the yayin that was in front of them by Kiddush, that constitutes the mitzvah min hamuvchar of everybody being toyim from the kais shel Kiddush. Okay, so with that we closed out Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. But I skipped some Mishnah Berurah over here. So let's go back to Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Ayin Ches. And if you go down in that Mishnah Berurah, in my print, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines into Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Ayin Ches by the words Kasvu HaPoskim, which are right before the Ois Katan Pei Beis for the Shar Hatzion. Over here, this goes back, this Mishnah Berurah is back on Mishnah Berurah on the Mechaber Sif Tes Vav. And in that Sif, we had been discussing different scenarios where something went wrong in Kiddush. We had one scenario where somebody went ahead and he made Kiddush, and then after he made Kiddush, he was mafsik. He started talking before he drank from the Kiddush wine. So by doing that, he made a hefsik between the Bar Priagofen, the bracha rishona on the wine, and the drinking of the wine. Since he made a hefsik between the Bar Priagofen and the drinking, he lost the Bar Priagofen. So he has to make a new Bar Priagofen. Does he have to make Kiddush over again? No. He didn't harm his Kiddush. He made a proper Kiddush over a kais shel yayin that had a shear and everything else. So his kiddush was a perfect kiddush. He still has to drink a mali lugmav, but he lost the bracha rishayna. So no problem. He'll now go ahead and make a new bracha rishayna. He'll make a new bar priagafen, and he'll drink a mali lugmav, and he's yaitze kiddush. Everything is fine. The second scenario that we had in Sif Tesvav was that, again, he made a perfect kiddush, but then he dropped the kais. Ooh, he dropped the kais. So then the yayin that he made the bar priagafen on is gone. When he made the bar priagafen, he had das on the yayin that was in the kais of kiddush. He dropped it. That wine is gone. He still has to drink a mali lugmav of kiddush. So what do? You bring new wine and you fill up the kais again. And you have to make a new bar priagafen, because your das, when you made the bar priagafen, wasn't on this new wine. It was on the original wine. So you need a bar priagafen. Okay, and then we discussed some details of this in the Mishnah Berurah's Ayin Sham. Now, against that backdrop, says the Mishnah Berurah the following. Kasva Poiskim. The Poiskim write, and he brings this down from the Mahari, the Radvaz, the Magen Avram, the Taz. Kasva Poiskim. The Poiskim write. Very interesting case, and I've seen this happen. Im Kiddush al HaKois. Somebody made Kiddush on a Kois. V'savar shu yayin. And he definitely thought that the Kois contained wine. V'nimtza shu chaimetz. And now when he goes and he drinks it, he finds out that the wine turned. And it's no longer wine, it's actually now wine vinegar, which is not kosher for Kiddush. Oy mayim. Or he thought he was making Kiddush on white wine. He has a beautiful kais, and the kais is gold washed on the inside. So even if you put in water, it looks a little bit golden colored. So he thought he was making Kiddush on white wine. And lo and behold, when he takes a drink, he discovers that it's not wine, it's water. So let's stop here a second, and let's just analyze this. The fellow made Kiddush. Now, the Kiddush was comprised of two brachas. It was comprised of a bar priagafen, and it was comprised of a bracha of Kiddush. In this scenario that I just gave you, neither one of them worked. He made a bar priagafen, but he doesn't have wine. He either has chaimetz or he has mayim. So his bracha rishon is out the window. As far as Kiddush, the Kiddush also didn't work. Kiddush has to be made al hakois. It has to be made on a kais of yayin. You didn't make Kiddush on a kais of yayin. You made Kiddush on a kais of chaimetz or a kais of mayim. So you're up the creek when it comes to both brachas. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Yikach kais akar shel yayin. You need a new kais of yayin. V'yavarich bar priagafen, and you got to make a bracha rishayna. You need a bar priagafen. V'yikadei shenis, and you got to make Kiddush over again. Dekeven shaloi hayayin, because since you didn't have wine, nimtza shaloi kidei shalakais klal. You didn't make Kiddush halakais. You thought you were making Kiddush halakais, but you didn't. So did you make Kiddush? No, you weren't yaitze Kiddush. You made a bracha rishayna, but you made a bar priagafen. Was there wine? No, there was chaimetz yayin. So you need a new agafen, you need a new Kiddush. Everything that you did is out the window. First thing the Mishnah Berurah said. Next, however, nevertheless, im hayadaitoi mitchila mishas bracha lishtois yayin yoiser. This is a wrinkle that we discussed already yesterday. Let's say when you made this Kiddush and you made the Borei Pri Hagafen, you knew that you're going to be drinking wine tonight, not only by Kiddush, you're also going to be drinking a nice Cabernet or a nice Merlot in middle of the Suda. So when you made the Borei Pri Hagafen of Kiddush, was your das only on the yayin in the kais? No. Your das was on the yayin in the kais. It was also on the Merlot and the Cabernet that you're going to drink by the Suda. In that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, Ein tzarich levarach shenis bar priagafen chidaleil. Then you don't need a new bar priagafen. Because in the first scenario that we had here, we were assuming that when you made a bar priagafen, your das was only on whatever was in the kais. And it turns out that there was no yayin in the kais. There was vinegar in the kais, so there was mayim in the kais. Now you got new yayin. You got to make a new bracha rishayna. But if you were intending on drinking Cabernet or Merlot in middle of the Suda, then when you made the bar priagafen, your das wasn't only on the yayin that's in the kais. Your das was on the yayin that's in the kais for Kiddush and on whatever wine you're going to drink during the Suda. So fine. So now bring new wine, and you're going to drink that wine on the smach, relying on the original bar priagafen. You're still going to need a new Kiddush, because you still didn't make Kiddush ala kais. Rak lakadosh. You still got to make Kiddush, because you didn't make Kiddush ala kais. You made Kiddush ala kais of yayin, of mayim, or a kais of chaimetz. So you weren't yaitze making Kiddush. So yes, you have to make Kiddush over again, but you don't need a new Bari Priyagofen. Continues the Mishnah in the brackets. V'chol zeh shenimtza koisem mayim u'chahai gavna davar she'ena mashka klal. But this halacha that we just said is only germane if when you drank the kais you found out it was water, or you found out it was vinegar, which is not a mashke. Aval kishenimtza sheichar. But let's say what happened was you made Kiddush al the kais, you made a Bari Priyagofen, and then you started drinking and you found out that it was Sam Adams. It was beer. Okay. Or you found out it was another type of beverage, which is considered chamar medina, something that you're allowed to make Kiddush on. In that case, ein tzarich likach kais acha lekiddush. You don't have to bring another kais and make Kiddush over again. You know why? Because you were Yotze Kiddush. If you went and you made Kiddush over a kais of beer, you're allowed to make Kiddush on beer. It's not like Lechatchila. It's supposed to be ala yayin. But if you don't have yayin, you could make Kiddush on beer. Beer is chamar medina. So you could make Kiddush on beer. So it's true. You made a Bari Priyagofen, and it turned out there's no wine in your kais. You made Kiddush. You thought you were making Kiddush ala yayin. You didn't. You made Kiddush on sheichar. You made Kiddush on beer. But you Yotze Kiddush on beer. So in this case, you don't have to make Kiddush over again. But what you do have to do is, Eli Yavarachal of Shahakal. But you got to make a Shahakal because you made a Hagofen. Hagofen doesn't cover you for a Bracha Rishayna on beer. So you got to make a Shahakal. And then you could drink the beer. But you Yotze Kiddush. Says the Mishnah weiter. V'ha ditzarach l'kadei shenis. And this that I'm telling you that you have to make Kiddush over again. In which case? In the case where you made Kiddush on a kais that turned out to contain water or vinegar, I told you in that case, the Mishnah said, you got to make Kiddush over again. That's also only true if you didn't have wine on the table. Let's say you sat down to Kiddush, you had a beautiful bottle of Cabernet sitting in front of you, and it's full. You made Kiddush on your kais. Lo and behold, when you drink the kais, you find that the kais is full of water. Do you have to make Kiddush over again? Says the Mishnah, no. You know why? I discussed this a few shiurim ago. Because technically the halacha is, in order to be Yotze, the requirement to make Kiddush al ha-kais, you don't have to be holding the kais. If there's yayin in front of you, that's called you made Kiddush al ha-kais. So you had a beautiful bottle of Cabernet in front of you. So guess what? You thought you were making Kiddush on the kais that was in your hand. But you were also making Kiddush on the Cabernet that's in front of you in the bottle. Or you had it next to you on the bench. Be'ez Kiddush. But this only works if you had das when you made the Bari Priyagofen, that it goes on all the wine that you're going to drink later. Then ain't tzarich gam l'kadishenis. Then you don't have to make a new Bari Priyagofen, because your Bari Priyagofen wasn't only on the kais, it was on the Cabernet too. You also don't have to make a new Kiddush. Because when you made Kiddush, the Kiddush wasn't only over the kais, over the yayin that you thought was in your kais. The Kiddush was also on the yayin that was in the bottle of Cabernet on your table. Right away, grab the bottle of Cabernet, pour a molei lugma into a kais, and drink it. And there are those that say further, there are those that say even weiter. They say like this. Let's say you made Kiddush ala kais. It turned out that the kais had water in it. You have no other yayin on the table. But you know what you do have? You have lechem Mishnah in front of you. You have your chalas in front of you, under the chaladekel. So you had pas on the table. Well, technically, you can make Kiddush ala pas. And you had pas in front of you. And you don't have to be holding the pas. The pas just has to be in front of you, at least b'di'evid. So you made the bracha of Kiddush and you had pas in front of you. Yes, you thought you were making Kiddush ala kais. You were holding a kais. You intended to make Kiddush ala kais. But it turned out that your kais had mayim in it. But you had pas in front of you. So says the Mishnah Berurah, if you had pas in front of you, ain't tzarich l'kadish mechadosh. You don't have to make Kiddush over again. Ela yivtza tekef akar Kiddush ala pas. Make hamoitzi right away and eat from the pas. V'dai bebrichas hamoitzi levad. And you'll be Yotze with that. But v'nired im kiddush kadim netilas yadayim kiddush magenu hayoim. But this doesn't work if you didn't wash yet. Because if you didn't wash yet, you can't just make hamoitzi and eat the challah, right? You got to go wash first. That would constitute a hefsek between the kiddush and the eating of the challah, so then you couldn't be yoytze be mekadosh alapas. Then ein shaykh loymar the challah kiddush alapas. A lot of beautiful details over here, but the basic rule over here is that kiddush is comprised of two separate brachas. There's that Berurah Gofen and there's the bracha of Kiddush. Sometimes it takes less to be Yotze Kiddush than it is to be Yotze that bracha Rishona, right? As far as Kiddush is concerned, you had a bottle of wine on the table, you could be Yotze Kiddush. You had pas on the table, some say you could be Yotze Kiddush. The wine spilled, you made it ala kais, it doesn't matter. You are mafsik, you made kiddush ala kais, it doesn't matter. In all of those cases, your problem is going to be with the Berurah Gofen, not with the problem of kiddush. Now, ois katan ayin tes, we also didn't do. Ois katan ayin tes is where the mechaber at the end of Sif Tes Vav said that in these scenarios that he gave in Sif Tes Vav, you don't have to make kiddush over again. Says the Mishnah Berurah Kasav Magen Avram. The Magen Avram writes, Im kidei shacharis al shechar. If Shabbos morning kiddush, you recited kiddush over beer. V'nishbach hakos, and now the kos of beer got spilled out. Ein tzarich lahavi acher. You don't have to bring another kos in order to be Yotze Kiddush. Because as far as making Kiddush, technically, there are those that hold that for Kiddush by day, really, strictly speaking, it's enough to wash and make a hamoitzi. And with that, you could already be Yotze Kiddush. So, okay, you made Kiddush on Shechar, you made Kiddush on beer, you made a shahakal on the beer spilled. Do you have to make Kiddush over again? No. But Rabbi Akiva Eger disagrees with this, and he says that you should not rely on the bracha of the hamoitzi. 1 second. There was something bothering me about this Mishnah Berurah, and I solved the problem. And now I don't remember what it was, but I think I wrote it down in my notes. Give me a half a second pause over here. My apologies. You made Kiddush on Shechar, which means you made a Shahakal. Okay. I remember what was bothering me, and I remember the answer. What was bothering me when I first learned this is the following. I don't understand. If you made Kiddush al Shechar, if you made Kiddush Shabbos morning on beer, that means what did you do? So let's say you picked up the cup of beer, the case of beer. And now you drop the case. Says the Mishnah Berurah from the Magen Avram, there are those that say that you don't have to bring another cup of beer. Why? Because, okay, it's true. You dropped the beer, so you're not Yotze Kiddush. But okay, now you're going to go wash, and you're going to make hamoitzi on Lechem Mishnah. There are those that say for Kiddush Shabbos morning, all you need is to make hamoitzi on Lechem Mishnah. That constitutes Kiddush. So all right, so you blew it with the Kiddush that you wanted to make on beer, so you'll be Yotze Kiddush with your hamoitzi on the Lechem Mishnah. But what was bothering me was, but I don't understand. You made a shahakal on the beer, and you never drank the beer. Isn't that a problem? It's a bracha of HaTorah. Shouldn't you have to bring another kais for that? But then I realized what I was thinking is amaratzis. The reason it's amaratzis is the halacha and hilchas brachas that we learned is if you made a shahakal on a cup of beer and now you dropped it, so your das was on that cup of beer. Now you dropped the cup of beer, the beer is gone. If you go get new beer, you're going to need a new shahakal anyway. You can't drink new beer based on the beer that you made a shahakal on and then dropped, unless there's a bottle of beer on the table and you knew that you were going to drink more beer. If you knew that you were going to drink more beer, so you would take more beer and drink more beer on that shahakal. So it shouldn't be a bracha of HaTorah. But if you emptied out a whole can of beer into a kais, you have no more beer. There's more beer in the refrigerator, but you weren't intending on drinking more beer. You made a shahakal on this beer and then you dropped it. If you go get new beer, you need a new bracha rishayna anyway. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be banging against Klal Yisrael. The Rabban Shem should send Yeshua Sefuas Parnasim Shaduchim to those in need. We should be zeicher to see the BS Gal Tzedek. B'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.